So let me give another example of this. Let's say that Eros tells you to jump off a cliff. Okay? Well, let's build this story a little bit, and let's say that if you jump off that cliff, you're going to die. That there's no question about it. On a physical level, on a human level, unless you're so enlightened that you can levitate, which that may be, but I'm talking about a case where you are not quite that developed. You step off that cliff, you're going to die. And yet you have this uncontrollable urge to jump off this cliff. Where's the spirituality in that? I'm using an extreme example because when you look down at spirituality, sometimes the message, sometimes the thought is very, very buried in the experience and something that you have not considered. So to go a step further, think about it. You jump off the cliff because you have the urge to do so. And on the way down, you get a revelation. Now, I have a twisted sense of humor, so I'm going to say that on the way down, what you get is, bad idea. Don't do that. Okay? That's okay. Because the jumping off the cliff and the dying may have reflected, in an absolute sense, things you were doing in your life anyway, but you weren't getting it. That you were shooting yourself in the foot, that you were sabotaging yourself, that you were staying stagnant. But all these things were happening on such a very subtle and minor level that you weren't getting, that you were not progressing, that you were managing to stay stuck. So Eros comes along and says, jump over the cliff. It'll kill you, but on the way down you may get the one thing you need to get going again as a spirit. Now, from a spiritual perspective, if you get that, the fact that you die is of little or no consequence, because we are immortal, we are eternal, and whether you come back on this planet or you go into spirit. And I tease a lot about the incarnatory process because the guide is sometimes very specific about it. So you die and you float up into the ethers and you go into the world of unity, and your teachers all gather around you and say, what did you learn? And you say, don't do that. And they say, why? Because that's the end of my life. So I need some adventure, but not that level of adventure. And they say, great, fabulous, congratulations. It would have taken 10 lifetimes to teach you that, but you got it. Now, sign up here because you're going back. And we'll give you another lifetime, and now you can use that enlightenment that you got. And we'll give you an opportunity to move faster. And let's watch you take it. Let's see if you really become enthusiastic. Let's see if you really allow Eros to exist moment by moment in your life. Or whether you live another lifetime where you say no, 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 until the response to Eros is extreme and cataclysmic. So what I'm trying to build here is the fact that just because Eros takes you over a proverbial or real cliff, and real damage happens, that does not mean that you are not on top of your spiritual path. But the guide is very clear. Just because you have an impulse to do that, let reason guide you. If you have an impulse to jump off the cliff, how about doing exactly what I just did and thinking it through? And if you think it through and you realize, boy, that would release me from stagnancy, but I'd have to start over. What could you turn around and you look at your life and say, well, what could I do if I continued in this life? And I started letting Eros move me in modest, but still ways of movement. So I'm going to tie this all together. The idea is that Eros may tell you jump over the cliff, or that may be the interpretation you have of a sudden urge. It does not mean jump over the cliff, but it means something. We have a faculty of reason. We have faculties of interpolation, of thinking things through, of seeing what's around the corner, of getting what would happen if we jumped off the cliff. And we are meant to use those faculties. So the Eros itself is only one element of our life and our spirituality. It is not the element. And while it may be one of the most potent forces in the universe, that does not mean that when it says jump, you have to jump. The trick is to honor having noticed the urge to jump and to see where that takes you. Now, if I take that analogy and I pick it up and I squash it into dating and love relationships, what this might look like there is that Eros may lead you to go out with someone. Eros may lead you to go into relationship with someone. But that does not necessarily mean that this is your soulmate. That does not necessarily mean that this will be a 1-year, 10-year, lifetime relationship. As the Eros comes up, it may be saying, we need this experience to build us. There's a part where Eros may know on some level that there's a plan, and the plan is for you to be out in the future committed in a relationship with someone. But it's going to be rocky unless you get this now, and that relationship isn't on the table yet. It's not ready. The other person hasn't moved along enough so that they are ready to take that step. So in effect, while you're on your own, by falling in love with this person, by experiencing this personality, by being in a certain environment for a certain length of time, you have an opportunity to grow and to develop. The invitation is to take the opportunity and to notice. On some level, perhaps in some instances, you could simply honor the Eros and not do the action that it suggests, just like the urge to jump over a cliff. What if you saw yourself attracted to somebody and said, what is that about? Well, that person was very intelligent. I've never been attracted to anyone very intelligent before. And you go through in your head, well, intelligent people make me feel dumb. And when I feel dumb, I become needy. Well, that's not an enlightened point of view. So what if you began to work on that? And as a way of working on that, you engaged in friendships or relationships with people who were more intelligent than the groups that you have been involved with before. And you exercise that weak part in you, that undeveloped part in you. In fact, let it swim, let it fly. Let it grow up a little bit. But again, just because Eros sends you there does not mean that you're meant to stay there.